Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the show. I'll babble for a couple minutes while everybody gets on. So how's everybody doing today? Give me a little hello in the comments. Let me know who's watching. It's another Monday. And more stuff to talk about. Come on in and join me, everybody. So yeah, just say hello when you log on. Oh, there's Nicole. Hi, Nicole. And I did get a glimpse of your message real quick about your show idea, and it sounds like a good one, so thank you. Talking about power struggles in relationships. So yeah, I might have to do one on that soon. So yeah. Now, Nicole, are you watching on my business Facebook page? My Glenn Ambrose Life Coaching Facebook page? I think that's where your comment was. So I think that's probably where you're watching from. Yes. Hello, Cindy. So we've got Nicole here saying hi. We've got Cindy saying hi. Yeah, as you guys come on, just say hi. So today I didn't know, it's like most of what I do, it's a spur of the moment decision. I'm trying to make it earlier in the day because the asking a question on Facebook and Instagram ahead of time is helpful. It gives me some information to go off of and some input from you guys. So, oh, here comes everybody. Okay, hey, buddy, what's happening? Thanks for joining. And there's Raina. Hey, Raina. So yeah, I asked a question on Facebook, and I just love getting the answers ahead of time because I never know what direction I'm going to go in, and the direction is determined by you guys, by the people that are watching, and what needs to be said and what needs to be heard and all that stuff. But, getting some input ahead of time, every time I ask a question ahead of time and get some input, it starts popping up doorways for me to enter the subject into, which I love. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't even think of going in that doorway, So I asked the question earlier, what does living consciously mean to you? And I asked that question consciously because I was like, what does it mean to you? Not what is it? Because everybody has a different perspective. And then I also asked, what does unconscious living look like? And I did that consciously as well because I wanted to not only get people's perspective on what it means to live consciously, but also to what it means to live unconsciously, because a lot of times it's like anything, we look at what is in our face the most often. And what's in our face the most often, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, is consciousness. Everybody's teaching mindfulness and consciousness and being in the moment and presence and all this stuff. And it's all the same thing. Different words, same thing, but they're all teaching consciousness. So a lot of people are starting to develop their own definitions of what consciousness is. So it really didn't surprise me that I got more. Well, in a way, it did surprise me because I didn't think of it. But once I saw it, I was like, oh, yes, of course. Of course, I got more detailed answers with what is consciousness to you, as opposed to what is unconsciousness. Because we think about that more, because it's talked about more often. How do you become more conscious? Let's become more conscious. What is consciousness? What does consciousness look like? Those are all the conversations. There's not a lot of conversations about what is unconsciousness. And to be honest with you, even though I hadn't phrased it like that in my head, energetically, conceptually, that was how I came to this idea for the show. It was more about unconsciousness than it was consciousness. And then getting the feedback from you guys helped clarify why, why it was more directed in that. And Sarah's joined us. Hey, Sarah, thank you. Thank you for saying hi. Thank you for joining us. So, yeah, I think I really want to talk about unconsciousness more, probably, than consciousness. But so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch on unconsciousness for a moment, just to kind of plant the seed. And then I'm going to go through consciousness just a little bit, and then have that bleed into the unconsciousness. And, probably that very well could take up the majority of the show, depending on how the energy flows. Man, this is all a guess. I don't actually know how it's going to go. But the reason I want to talk about unconsciousness is because when you're teaching spirituality, or when you're learning spirituality, or self-awareness, whatever you want to call it, how to be living more optimistically or positively. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's just when you're trying to better your life in some way, that's spiritual work. So whether you call it that or not. And we use terminology, and this is the problem with the terminology, because the terminology can never actually express what you're trying to express. So this is one of the hurdles that I needed to overcome being a spiritual teacher, is because, like, you have to understand that you can't explain what you're trying to explain. Like, that's spiritual teacher 101. Like, there are no words to explain what you're trying to explain. There are no words to teach what you're trying to teach. So I needed to swallow that right off the bat, and Tolle says this, as well as a lot of things, very nicely. He says, words are signposts. They're pointers towards something, but they're not it. Like, it's not actually it. When I can't accurately describe the mysteries of the universe. Like, it's just too big. So we can never specifically identify it. It's just, what we're doing is we're just using words as pointers towards it. And then when something clicks inside of you, it's more conceptually. When you really get something, that click inside of you, that you actually get it more conceptually. And sometimes you can tell this by, like, when you actually get something, especially if you get it conceptually first, because there's three basic ways that we go through. I did a podcast on this before too. There's three basic aspects of learning something spiritual here on this earth. There's intellectual, that's understanding it. There's conceptual, that's getting it in here, in your body. And then there's physical action, there's living it. We can understand something fully as a concept within our body, and we can understand it intellectually, but until we go out into the world and live it, it doesn't really change our physical vibration. It's just a theory, so living in accordance with these concepts is what really changes us. So if you get, and you can get, sometimes you get things intellectually, then conceptually, and then you live it physically. Sometimes you take an act kind of out of nowhere. Sometimes it's an inspired action. Sometimes it seems like it's an accidental action, which it never is. And then all of a sudden the concept and the intellectual understanding can come later. Or you can get some things conceptually first, and then you understand them later, and then you live them later. So it can come in any order. So sometimes we get some things conceptually first, even before we fully understand it intellectually. And we go to explain it to somebody, and we go, "Oh yes, I know, I get it." It's and there are no words. Like, you have no idea even how to begin to explain it. That's because you can't truly explain something that's spiritual, a spiritual concept, So this is the hurdle that we have to get over right off the bat, is we have to understand as we're walking this journey. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is to try to minimize judgment around this, because terminology does not accurately describe things, and yet we need to use terminology to teach and express things with one another. There's going to be problems with that because it's not a perfect formula. Now, if we have the ability to send ideas, telepathically and just communicate without words, which, at some point in the future, I believe we probably will communicate that way. We'll just, send concepts to one another, and it'll just be so much clearer than trying to explain things through words. That's going to be fine, but we're not there yet. So until that time, we need to use the words. And this is what gave me the idea, is because we use words we say, "Oh, I'm trying to live consciously." And then you have to understand what unconscious is. So then, a lot of times if you're trying to live consciously, and an example of unconscious living is what the majority of people on earth are still doing, sometimes we'll use that as an example, like, "Oh, okay, most people are unconscious and they're doing it this way. We're trying to live consciously, so that looks this way." Okay, so this is a lot of the type of talking that flows through spiritual teaching and stuff. When you're trying to make a point, it's helpful to understand what you don't want, to understand what you do want, and that turns up the contrast between the two sides, and it makes it clearer. That's what contrast does, is it makes things clearer. So if you can say, like, this is unconsciousness and then this is consciousness, you just increase the contrast and made it easier to understand and comprehend. So in this doing, in these conversations, what happens is people start thinking that it leads to judgment sometimes. And people think that you're judging people because you're calling them unconscious. And you go, "Oh, the conscious people are good and the unconscious people are bad." And that's not the case. That's not the implication in anybody that's living consciously or talking consciously or trying to live in awakened reality. That's not what they're saying. They're not saying unconscious people are bad and conscious people are good. It has nothing to do with good and bad. It just has to do with factually unconscious and conscious. That's all. It's just, and it sounds bad because unconscious people do things unconsciously. They're not aware of what they're doing fully. Of course, most people are unconscious. So if you look at 3/4 of the people walking down the street, they're unconscious, and 25% could be conscious, and I'm making up these numbers, but if you see 100 people walking down the street and 3/4 of them are unconscious and 1/4 of them are conscious, it doesn't mean that there's 25% good people and 75% bad people. It doesn't mean that 75% of the unconscious or all of the unconscious people are walking wrong. Like, it doesn't matter, or they make stupid decisions in their lives all the time. Like, that's not what it means. It just means they're not aware. They're not fully aware. Are they aware? Yeah, they're aware. I mean, they're conscious in a way that they're awake, like they're not sleeping, right? So of course they make decisions and they go, oh, okay, what would better my life? Well, I should take the promotion that was offered to me because I'll make more money, and that has the possibility of enhancing my life. Oh, okay, I'll do that. Well, that's unconscious thinking. Now, it's in the way that we use it in spiritual teaching or self-development, personal development, that's unconscious thinking. Because actually, if you look at money, like the most promotions have like a 10 to 20% pay increase, which is not much. And they usually add more like, 30% responsibility. So the trade-off isn't usually really good. And there is a dramatic rise in happiness when somebody has zero money, that like they literally cannot eat, and when their basic needs are met. So let's just say that is completely broke and cannot eat to, whatever, you're making $40,000 a year. We'll just throw a number out there. So your basic needs are met. You can have a roof over your head, After that, how much your happiness increases based on your finances is very, very minimal. Very minimal. Oftentimes non-existent, and it oftentimes even goes backwards. So if you're not aware of that, you're not making a conscious decision because you're not fully conscious of the decision you're making. Okay, so this is what is meant by consciousness. So you're like, oh, okay, well, wait a minute. It isn't going to make me happier probably because the pay increase really isn't that much. It's not going to change my lifestyle that much. And I'm actually adding more responsibility and stress, and the pay increase isn't worth it. And actually, I like my job that I'm doing now. It brings me joy to go in and do it every day. And the promotion I'm taking has different job responsibilities. And even though it's in the same field, I like those responsibilities less. Like a lot of people that are good at doing their job aren't good at managing people. And that's a lot of what promotions are. They go from, oh, you're really good at doing, we're going to promote you to manage everybody else that's doing. And so it doesn't make conscious sense to take somebody that is good at doing and to assume that they're going to be good at managing people, which is completely different capabilities and personalities, right? So this is, these are just some of the aspects of consciousness and unconsciousness. So it's just factual. You're just not looking at the reality of how this is going to impact your life because you're not even aware of it. Because nobody really taught us how to live consciously. We've been taught how to live unconsciously since we were born. Look at how many people are on the planet. And, of course, I grew up in the United States. So, by the time, I graduated high school in '86. By the time I graduated high school, college was in full push. Maybe a generation before, not everybody went to college, but it was starting to get pretty important. By my generation, almost everybody went to college. It was really pushed because it's society. What does society say? Society says you go to school, you should get good grades, then you go to college and you get good grades there, and you go to the biggest college possible because that's really impressive and big companies will hire you for big money. And then you get your job after that, and somewhere along the way you meet your wife, you have 2.3 kids, a dog named Spot, and a white picket fence, and you're happy. Congratulations. That's the American dream. You live it. Woohoo. And basically, if you look at what society is doing and how they make their decisions, it's in alignment with that. Most people make decisions based in alignment with what society is telling them you're supposed to do. And that's unconscious because, we live in a society where, and you got to constantly step back and gain perspective with these things. It's nothing personal. It's not personal and it's not judgmental. It's facts. The fact is the reason that we have war on this planet is because most people are unconscious. That's why we have war. Because killing another human being is against not only nature, but every religion and spiritual belief system on the planet. It goes against it. And every religion has killed in the name of their God that says thou shalt not kill. So that's literally does not make sense. It's not a judgmental call. It just doesn't make sense. It's unconscious behavior, So this is if you take what I just said and put it into a judgmental perspective, and I'm doing this to try to make a point, to try to show us how not to be judgmental. But if you put it into a judgmental perspective, then the unconscious follow through with what I just said says that when I talk about unconscious people, they're bad, they cause war, and I'm good and I'm better than them, and I don't cause war because I'm not living unconsciously. So this is what our ego does, is it automatically tries to create separation between me and whatever the hell I'm talking about. And we are all one. We are all one. So there is no separation. The unconscious people and the conscious people make up the collective energy field here on Earth. We're all in this together. Now, do I personally believe that making decisions consciously where I go, okay, so the government that I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes there and what their interests are. And if I look at history, they've really been out for themselves as opposed to me. And I'm going to say, they're telling me that I should grab a gun and go over to a different country and kill somebody that I've never met and that probably has a family of their own. And I'm supposed to leave my family, go over to their family, go over where they live, and then kill them because the government tells me I should. And it's for my own safety and protection. Yeah, I'm just not going to kill people because I don't think killing people is good. The rest is just noise. Like the rest is, yeah, but stories and unconscious blah, 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 manipulation. I'm just not going to go kill anybody. That would be the natural conclusion of most people. Because most people are good. Most people are not sitting around trying to figure out how to kill somebody else. And yet we do it by the millions every year. That's unconscious behavior. But it just is. This is the world we live in. It's not, we don't have to get upset and start blaming and pointing fingers every time there's something we don't like. And this is where we start veering off. It's like, do I like that there's a bunch of people making decisions that I think are detrimental to themselves and a society? Well, no, I don't really like it, but I understand that that's the reality in which we live in. And I'm not resisting it. It's okay. It's okay. They can't affect me. They can't wreck my life. And this leads back into consciousness. Like unconscious people, can they, because of making decisions unconsciously and therefore unhealthy things happen on this planet? Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's not the best and all that stuff. Whatever. It doesn't have to affect my existence here. I mean, there's been people on this planet for tens of thousands of years that have lived pretty happy existences most of their lives. And we've had unconsciousness running the world all these years. This is nothing new, you know? So like you can still, we are masters of our own domain. We have way more control over our reality than we think we do. When I was drinking, I was a very angry person inside. Like on the outside, most people, I think I got, this could be my own warped perspective, but I had tons of friends. I think I got along with most people. I mean, if something happened that pissed me off, well, then, there's a good chance that there might be a fight that occurred, and that I'm not proud of. But for the most part, I got along with most people. But I was completely unconscious, and I was not making good decisions, and I was detrimental, but I was still a good person inside. So it's, back then I found every angry person on the planet. If we went to a party, a big enough party where other schools came, especially, or we went to a different school, or out of town somewhere, if there was a person in that school or that city that was as angry inside as I was, we found each other in the first half hour of the party every time. I mean, we'd just be sitting there drinking, having a few beers, and then all of a sudden it'd be like you just bump into somebody. You turn around, look at them. And that one look in the eye, like anger recognizes anger. You just look at that person and you go, oh, you're the one. Let's go. And you'd be outside fighting. That's what it is. We attract that vibration I was at. If there was anybody angry within miles of me, we were going to bump into each other. Now, then I woke up spiritually almost 18 years ago now. I haven't been in one fight. I haven't even come close to getting in fights. Why? Because I'm not vibrating at that. I don't do that. All kinds of people stole from me. Nobody steals from me. Why? I'm not in those circles. People talked bad about me, and I would confront them and argue with them, and then sometimes they'd stay in my life for years in one way, shape, or form, and there would be drama every once in a while. There's no drama in my life, and I'm not running around cutting people out of my life all the time. It's just I just don't put energy towards things that have drama to them. I just kind of, drama's over there. I just kind of look over here. I just look off in the other direction, walk, talk to somebody different, whatever. And the people who are filled with drama aren't getting the food that they want. So I just don't find them in my life. Like I said, I don't cut them out of my life. They're just not really there, Then sometimes I'll see somebody a few times or something. Then all of a sudden, like 6 months later or a year later or 3 years later, I'll be like, remember, maybe somebody will bring it up in conversation, or I'll just think about them. Remember meeting that person? I wonder whatever happened to them. Yeah, that was weird. I just, I saw them those few times there in that little period of time. And, there seemed to be a little bit of drama there or whatever, but I mean, it wasn't a big deal. And then I just never saw them again. I was in the same town. I hung out with the same people. I just kind of never saw them again. That's weird. That's how it happens. Is, our vibe attracts our tribe. And Lisa just kind of reminded me of that. She said, hey, Glenn, good vibes. That just reminded me of that saying. Yeah, our vibe attracts our tribe, And Margie says, hi, thanks for joining us, Margie. So it's, we can live a very highly satisfactory existence amongst a society that is largely unconscious. Just unconscious because they're not aware of our way of thinking, and you can change the word. Well, I'm spiritual and they're not. Sometimes people like that better because they're like, oh, okay, you live spiritual principles, so it's a specific way of thinking, and this person doesn't. So that's good. Conscious and unconscious makes me think that one is good and one is bad, right? So this is why I'm having this conversation, to shine some light on this and get you guys, and please make some comments. Let me know what you think so I can expand on this stuff. But I'm trying to show that consciousness, and I'm going to go to some of the comments now. Consciousness, Tony says it's like eating healthy, exercise regular, and stay positive along with my daily meditation. But I am unlike other people where I don't get caught up in things that do not matter to me. And that's really interesting because it kind of, from my perspective, it dances around and it doesn't really state what consciousness is that clearly. But then that last sentence ties it in, and it does. This is kind of like a Buddhist philosophy. When you say what it isn't, whatever's left over is what it is. And that oftentimes is a better way of speaking. That's why Buddhists do it, because they know they can't have words to accurately describe it. But if they say what it isn't, and then it's implied that it's what's left over, that's a good way of doing it. And this is what Tony did, in my opinion, here. Because, I know Tony, and he's got a very unique personality. He always has since I knew him in school. It's like he just has this joy about him that, I'm sure he has his ups and downs in life, but for the most part, he just has this joy about him that's the most important thing, is his joy. And then when something comes in and goes, oh yeah, but your car's smashed up, and he's like, yeah, and he's so good at it that he's like, yeah, but it's just a car. Whereas like some people have to work to get, they have to work 3 weeks to stop being pissed off that their car is smashed. Tony can kind of like go there right away, because he's been living like this a long time. And I'm just going to leave out the rest of the names, but conscious living is the awareness of your environment and thinking process. Yeah. Unconscious living is how you think after receiving a powerful uppercut from Mike Tyson. Well, that's one way of unconsciousness, but of course not what we're talking about. But yeah, conscious living is the awareness of your thoughts, the feelings and beliefs behind them, and seeing how you consciously created the experiences you are living. Now that's starting to get deep into a fuller explanation of what conscious living is. Awareness of your thoughts, the feelings and beliefs behind those thoughts. You know how I was talking earlier about people not making decisions without understanding their full thought process, and even understanding their feelings or where the beliefs behind them came from, right? So this is touching on that. And seeing how you consciously created the experiences you are living. Yeah, and we are creating the experiences. And I started touching on that. Maybe one podcast I'll go really deeply into that, because that's popping up a lot. Now, we are expanding tremendously as spiritual beings, and it's becoming more and more obvious that we are creating the experiences that we are having here. And it's getting very, very, it's getting more and more apparent. In conscious living, you are empowered and recognize your participation in your daily experiences. Microcosm as a creator, so you're creating your own personal experiences in the microcosm, and how you are also creating in the macrocosm of our world and the universe. So how I'm creating my own experiences, as well as how I am one, connected to everything and everyone in the macrocosm. And my actions are affecting that vibration as well. Nice. And that was D. It was good stuff. I want to shout out the name. I never know who wants their name mentioned, Conscious is being in the moment of self-awareness. Yeah, being in the moment is another way of being conscious. Self-awareness is Yeah, you're self-aware when you're in the moment. So those three things are kind of the same thing. Consciousness is being in the moment. Yes, that's consciousness of self-awareness. Yes, being very self-aware is being in the moment, and it's also consciousness. So yes, those are all three aspects of it. I only know unconscious when I'm sleeping. Exactly why I'm doing this show. Because we don't think enough about the unconscious aspect of things. What is unconsciousness? We just go, oh, I'm trying to be more conscious. Well, how are you going to know whether you're unconscious or whether you're conscious if you don't have a clear understanding of what unconscious behavior is? If you don't know when you're unconscious, so here's another tricky point. When you're unconscious, you're not going to know you're unconscious until you become conscious. Okay? So if somebody's unconscious, they can't know that they're unconscious. It's literally impossible. That's part of unconsciousness, right? But the moment you go, oh my God, I'm unconscious, you actually technically should be saying, oh my God, I was unconscious, because that moment you recognize it, you're conscious. So when you recognize that you've been unconscious, in that moment, you're already conscious. So, which is good. And we need to celebrate that. A lot of times during this journey, people get we're in the habit of beating the crap out of ourselves. So what happens is when people are trying to be more mindful and more conscious, most often when they start understanding this, when they recognize, oh, I'm unconscious or I've been unconscious, they go, oh, crap, I can't believe I fell back into unconsciousness. Oh, what an idiot. I'm such a moron. I can't believe I. Now, that's the exact opposite way that we need to be going. What we need to do is we need to celebrate that we just recognize that we're unconscious. That means we're conscious. So we celebrate the fact that we recognized it. Celebrate the fact that we're conscious in that moment. And if we do that, that's how we build. We have to stop kicking ourselves in the ass and start patting ourselves on the back. It's only about a 12-inch difference. So stop kicking yourself in the ass and start patting yourself on the back. Stop beating yourself up for when you're recognizing that you weren't conscious. We all slip into unconsciousness. All of us. And if we're thinking that the only time we experience unconsciousness is when we're sleeping or when Mike Tyson punches us, then we're not aware of what unconsciousness is. Because I slip into unconsciousness regularly. It happens. I think I'm more conscious than I am unconscious at this stage. But I've been doing this for many years, and I slip into unconsciousness on a fairly regular basis. It happens. Sometimes it's for 30 seconds. Sometimes it's for 3 hours. Sometimes it's for 3 days, but it happens. And it's, so if you're beating yourself up every time it happens, you're slowing your growth, because judgment and feeling bad about yourself slows your growth. So what we need to do is support ourselves in that growth. Yeah, hey, good. All right, I'm not unconscious now. I recognized it. Good. Let's see, comments. Sarah says, I feel like consciousness comes from intentionally sitting with the universe daily. Yeah, that definitely expands your consciousness. Practice. It's like anything else. What do you want in your life? Which this is one of the ways that I like to teach it too. It's, we go, oh, I'm really trying to work on myself. How? Well, I'm trying to be a better person. How? Well, I'm trying to pay attention to what I'm doing. How? Well, I just kind of, like, there's no, and I'm not saying that that is not good. That's good too. Just having an idea that you might want to be a better person is good. It's a step in the right direction. But happiness, contentment, peace, love, is there anything more important than that? Anything? There isn't. There is literally nothing in existence more important than your own peace, love, and happiness. Because no matter what you think is more important, you can have that, and it doesn't mean crap if you don't have the happiness, peace, and love. You can be rich. Okay, so now you're rich and miserable and suicidal. I guess rich really isn't that important. Oh, I'm not rich, but I'm happy. Oh, okay. Well, that seems like a pretty good existence to be walking around. I'm happy and I'm rich. Oh, that's wonderful too. But happy, rich and not happy sucks. Rich and happy, good. Poor and happy, good. See, so like, any happy is number one, and I mean a deep, contented, spiritual happiness, not like, oh my God, I'm freaking happy all the time. No, that's not sustainable. That's just fleeting and it's fun for moments. But I'm talking about a deep, contented, loving, peaceful happiness that you can carry through. And when a loved one dies, your heart hurts and you cry, but you still have this baseline of peace and happiness underneath, where you know that everything's okay, you are loved. That's what I'm talking about, that baseline. That's what we need. That's what we all seek. And if we don't have it, nothing is more important. So why don't we put more energy into it? Why don't we even know how to put words to what it is when we're not experiencing it? Because that's basically what unconsciousness does. You cannot be deeply contented and have no consciousness. You can't. You can be ignorant. You can be, blissfully happy. You can be floating around. And sometimes that's what it looks like when you're deeply contented. So some people, like if you're one of those people that is happy most of the time, but you don't consider yourself spiritual, you're probably just not using the same words. Because if you're peaceful and happy most of the time, you're actually living spiritually by the definition of what spirituality is. Maybe you just don't like the term spirituality. You have a negative context to what it means or something, whatever. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's just a feeling. I don't give a crap how you get it. I don't care if religion brings it to you, spirituality brings it to you, self-help books bring it to you, meditation brings it to you, petting a dog, going for a run, sitting in nature. I don't care how you get it. If you're sitting there and putting attention to what is, so if I'm just sitting here, and I look out the window and see a palm tree, if I label it as a palm tree, it's just a tree. If I just connect to the essence of it, it's much more broad than that. And now I can feel a connection with everything. So like if you go out at night and you look up into the sky, most people look at the stars. Don't look at the stars. Look at the space in between the stars every once in a while. Just the nothingness. And if you pay attention to how you feel on your body, most people feel this expansion within them. They feel this when they look up into the so-called nothingness. It helps us connect with everything that is. It like we just feel this contented peace within us. Like, it's the concept that we're all one. We can feel that. That's consciousness. When I meditate, I don't worry about slowing my mind down because that's close to impossible a lot of days. What I do is I pay attention to how I feel. How I feel tells me whether I'm connected. But that's kind of how I am. Not everybody's like that. I'm more feeling. I feel when I'm talking, when I'm speaking truth. I can feel when I'm lost a little bit. I feel when I just feel a lot. That's how I interact with the universe, is through feeling. That's my natural way of communication with the universe. So since that I'm naturally good at that for some reason, that's what I do. And other people hear more, clairaudio, clairvoyant, all there's different ways of connecting. So that is when we're conscious. When we're unconscious is when we don't. A sign that you're unconscious is when you're upset. That was one like overwhelming or overarching mentality that has helped me, is when I'm sitting there going like, whoops, I moved my camera. When like, especially if I'm in bad space or something and I'm trying to get back into good space, I'll just I'll set these general overall statements that are very simple and I can just focus on. So one is, if I'm ever feeling anything that is unpleasurable, then I'm looking at it wrong. My perspective needs to shift. So what that does is, if I'm experiencing something uncomfortable, then most of the time it's because I'm unconscious. Most of the time. I mean, like I said, sometimes if somebody close to me passed away and there's sadness, well, that I could be conscious and experiencing sadness, but it only lasts a certain period of time and I can process it and blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about most of the daily times when I'm not feeling peaceful. If I'm not feeling peaceful, as a general rule, other than those unique conscious times, that means I'm unconscious. That means I'm looking at something wrong. So I slow down and see how I can look at whatever's upsetting me in a different way. Usually that leans in the direction of accepting the reality of the situation that I'm in, because resistance causes most of the suffering. So once I accept the reality, and it's like, oh, okay, it just is. It just is. I don't necessarily like it, but it's the reality, and it just is. So I accept it. Now all of a sudden that resistance is gone, and I'm not experiencing these uncomfortable emotions. You see? So we need to put energy into becoming more conscious. We need to develop ways of becoming more conscious. We need to understand that if you're looking at the world like there's no hope, you're looking at it unconsciously. If you're looking at your life like you're a victim of it, you're unconscious. Like there is love, there is peace, there is hope, there is joy on this planet. And the way we connect with it and bring it into our experience is through being conscious, by living consciously. So if you're not living that way, there is levels of unconsciousness in your life. And we have to let go of the stories. We can't point the finger and go, yes, but the government passes stupid laws and there's a meatball in the presidency for the last 4 years, or there's a meatball in the presidency these 4 years, or there's a COVID crisis on the planet, or that, like, all that stuff is just stories. Like, do what, if you want to do something to try to shift one of those stories, then by all means, go ahead and do it. But sitting around allowing it to make your life miserable is not benefiting the situation. It's not changing a damn thing. This is why we've been unconscious for so many years. Is because we're sitting around going, oh, like we're victims of life, and we're not victims of life. If you want to take action in a particular area, go ahead, take action. But take action out of love. The reason nothing ever gets done in politics is because there's two angry people yelling at each other. Two angry groups yelling at each other. How the hell is anything ever going to get fixed like that? Does anybody know of a couple that argues all the time? Do they have a good relationship? No, they argue all the time. Do they work through their problems well? No, they're always arguing. Yeah, that's because arguing is not a way of solving problems. That's not how problems get solved. And so stop it. Stop it and just connect to your peace first. Be the change you wish to see. Become conscious in your life. Find peace in your heart. Don't go, oh, well, we have to fix COVID and we have to fix the political problems and there's children starving in Africa and we have to fix that. And if I try to take care of myself before any of that is fixed, then I'm selfish. No, you're part of the problem. Fix yourself. Then take all that good loving energy and bring it into these situations. Bring good loving energy, not anger or arguing energy. Don't try to fix the world, just try to fix you. If there's, if we just had people focus on themselves, everybody thinks that something external needs to change for them to be happy. And it's backwards. We need to be happy. This is the thing that, you want to live in a peaceful world. You want wars to stop. You want everybody to be fed. Do you want political idiots out of office? You want any of that stuff? I'll tell you how to get it. Become more conscious. Meditate. Work on yourself. Create your own peaceful, loving inner environment. Because that's how change actually happens. When a large group of people on the planet and society start vibrating at a different rate, they put up with different stuff. This is how everything has changed. This is how everything changed in India with Gandhi. This is how things changed with slaves in the United States. This is the women's movement in the United States. Of course, I grew up there, so I'm a little more aware of those aspects. But large social change happens not on the surface where what draws your attention. We're so addicted to our sensory perceptions. Oh, I see somebody talking at a podium. They changed the world. No, they didn't. Oh, there's a big group of 1 million people standing behind them. They changed the world. No, they did not. That's not what changes the world. Collective consciousness changes the world. Do you want to know why the women's rights and the equal rights and all this stuff happened around the world in all these different ways of social change? Because enough people were looking at it inside themselves. Most of them didn't even speak it out loud for fear of prosecution and everything else. So most of it was just their internal thing going, yeah, that ain't right. I can't understand. It just doesn't, there's something inside of me that goes, enslaving another group of people because of the color of their skin just isn't right. I just can't make sense of that inside of me. It's just not right. More people thought like that than people thought it was right. That's mass consciousness. That bleeds into action. That supports the people on the top that are making the things pass. Though that's the energy in which the person standing at the podium is actually tapping into and speaking about. Large social change happens when large social consciousness changes. So work on your own consciousness. Bring more peace and love into your life. If you can't, there's a saying, if you can't love yourself, how can you love somebody else? There's a lot of truth to that. And this is what everything starts inside. All work is self-work. You take care of yourself, the external will take care of itself. It will start shifting. You will have less, and I'll use this for Nicole, meatball. Sorry, that was funny, her comment. There'll be less meatballs in your life if you work on your inner self. Less meatballs will be attracted to you. Less negative people, less drama. You're going to live a happier existence. This is what I'm talking about. We have to change within ourselves. And then we start treating people differently, our friends, our neighbors, our family. And some of them we lose because they can't understand it. And some of them get closer. And then some of them stay at bay for a little while to see if this is really true. And then a year later, they start asking questions and then they expand. This is how consciousness expands. It feeds off of one another. Be a bonfire. This is how I try to picture myself, as a bonfire. Maybe it was all my years of partying in the woods as a kid. Good memories. Throw another log on the fire, man. Shine brightly within. You don't have to go out there and change the world. You change your inner world and shine brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And the heat is love. And you can reach more people with the love. And the brightness is the light. That's also the love. And more people can see it from further away. The brighter you burn and are attracted to it for its warmth and its good feeling. Hey, what's going on over there? If we give people the choice between love and hate, they're going to choose love. So let's give them that choice. They're in a world filled with hate and they can't see any other choices. So be that other choice. Be that bonfire. Be that lantern in the window. You know, give them a choice. Be the love that you want to see in this world. Be it. And it will expand. And your life is going to expand first. You know, you're going to be experiencing the consciousness and the joy. And it's okay that other people are unconscious. It's okay. It's not a judgment. People have been unconscious for thousands of years. They're probably going to be unconscious for a while, although this spiritual shift is happening fast. But unconscious people are going to be around for a while, so it's fine. They're you know, unconsciousness is not stronger than consciousness. Consciousness is much stronger, and you don't need everybody else to be healthy, to live a healthy life. So I think that's it. You know, I think do yourselves a little favor and dive into researching what unconsciousness is a little bit. And you might have to dive into learning what consciousness is a little bit better, a little bit more, because a lot of the books, you know, there's probably not a lot of books or podcasts on unconsciousness. So you might need to listen to what consciousness is, but listen consciously. You be aware of what you're listening to and why you're listening to it. And if you listen to it like that, what you can do is be like, okay, I'll contemplate this. I'll play with this. I'll take these words and say, well, if this is what consciousness is, then maybe the absence of this is what unconsciousness is. What does that look like? What does the absence of this look like? How would people act? You know? And then we have to be sure we don't slip into spiritual snobbery and start judging people that are unconscious. It's just factual. They're just not aware of what they're doing. Not bad. And I don't think I'm better than them. And you shouldn't either. We're not better than anybody else. We're all the same. We're all one. One is not better than the other. It just is. You know, I'm working towards more love. It's okay. You know, hopefully they will too. If they don't, it's not my business. We're not supposed to all be doing the same things, and we're not all supposed to agree. It's never happened on the planet ever before, and for some reason we have this idea that we're all supposed to agree and be heading in the same direction and all that crap. Baloney. Never. It's never going to happen. You know, I live up here in community with 4 other people. Our spirituality has been come to, experienced, learned, and lived in 5 different ways between the 5 of us. And that's what's the beauty of it is. It's wonderful. As long as we don't think we're supposed to see things the same. And we go, well, I see it this way. Well, I see it that way. Oh, cool. Not going to change my way. I like my way. But it's interesting that you look at it that way. Neat. You know? So this is how we're supposed to live in community. This is why community is so important. Acceptance of one another. So let's drop the judgmental stuff. Understand that just because people are using, especially in spirituality, spiritual teaching and stuff, just because people are using terms to try to make a point where one group of people is here and another group of people is here, or one way of living is here and another way of living is here, doesn't mean that one is good or bad. You got to let that stuff go. That's just a judgment. There's not one isn't bad and one isn't good. They just both are. So just let that out of your consciousness. So that's it. I'm going to wrap up and call it a day. So thank you guys for listening. And Yeah, that's going to do it for today. I'm gonna end this one quickly to get it in just under an hour. See ya.
Looking for more? Check out over 200 episodes of Life Lessons in Laughter, or click the link in the description of this episode to connect with Glenn directly.